Hey, and welcome back to Chill Under Pressure. I'm Les.
I'm Adam.
And today we have Amrit with us from Axiom Cloud. How you doing?
Hi, folks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us, Amrit. So Amrit, what is Axiom Cloud? Tell us a little bit about what that is and how you ended up getting into this whole world.
So Axiom, essentially, we're using AI to change how refrigeration systems are managed. And the whole idea is that there's already this gold mine of data available within these refrigeration systems today. You have, hundreds to thousands of temperatures and pressures and valve positions and superheat values and enthalpies, and they're essentially printing out like every 15 seconds to 1 minute. So you have this gold mine of data, and you can do all kinds of very useful things with that using AI. If you're able to get that data out of the controller into the cloud across a whole bunch of facilities, clean it, label it, normalize it, make it useful and accessible, and then apply AI. So that's Axiom's playbook. But I think where Axiom really kind of differentiates and helps our customers is that, and by the way, we're selling to retail, grocery, and cold storage, large companies typically. We're able to help our customers go beyond the data, go beyond the analytics to actually driving real measurable outcomes. So that means, turning wrenches on the ground to fix problems before they become emergencies, fixing leaks before the whole system runs out of gas, making the system more energy efficient before your energy bill in this facility is 60% higher this year than it was last year, that sort of thing. So that's really where the rubber meets the road. And that's where we focus our time and effort, is helping our customers get from raw data all the way to really measurable business outcomes.
So how did you, I love the whole concept, by the way. I'm a big fan. We haven't actually gotten to connect. I know you've talked to Les and Rod before, but I follow you guys, all your stuff all over the internet and LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm always liking what you're doing. And I just think it's a really cool tech. So I got a bunch of questions about that too. But how did you get into this? I mean, like, how do I know you're the 6-year-old Amrit out there, and he's like, I'm going to do this when I get older. I mean, how did you end up?
I'm going to solve refrigerant leaks at scale.
Yeah,
exactly. So I came at it from a climate change angle. In high school, this is pretty embarrassing, but my parents, who are, crunchy granola types from Maine, that's where I grew up in Maine, they took me to a screening of, you guys remember that movie that Al Gore put out, Inconvenient Truth?
Yep.
And so
nope.
You guys remember that? Really? Wow. Okay. Maybe I'm dating myself here.
I do.
But that rocked my world. And this whole idea of climate change and, how big of a problem it is and how much opportunity we have to actually change the course of climate change was really scary and motivating for me. And so something about that just clicked with me, and it became kind of like my driving force and kind of the thing that I was really passionate about. And that hasn't changed now for 20 years. But basically, I went to Stanford thinking that I was going to focus on political science, this whole idea of, okay, we're going to solve climate change with the stroke of a pen. And we're going to force all these industries to change their ways and force the way that we consume energy to change at scale. But in the first month at Stanford, I got really excited about entrepreneurship, and I loved how things worked. I love technology. I love building things, love computers. And so I realized, man, maybe there's an opportunity to do exactly what I want using technology and entrepreneurship so that this is adopted by the market at scale rather than being forced on the market by politicians at scale. And so that kind of brought me to what really drives me today, which is, if there's ever a way to align a sustainable choice with a best value decision, that's what gets me really excited, because that's how you drive that massive, massive scalability. Is if the cheapest option, the best option, the most comfortable, the easiest option also happens to be the really sustainable option. So that was how I kind of got into this space. And then I fell into the refrigeration and retail grocery space by accident coming out of school. I was chasing a girl across the country coming out of Stanford. And
that's a good start to any story, right?
Yeah, exactly. Who's now my wife, and we have 2 beautiful daughters. But that all worked out pretty well. But ultimately, I landed this job at a energy services company as a low-level, analyst, essentially. And when I was there, our first customer, or the first account I worked on, was a major national grocery chain. And and in the first meeting with that new customer, they showed us their, enormous energy bill. It was hundreds of millions of dollars per year. And they were like, oh yeah, 60% of this is refrigeration. There's nothing you can do about that. So just focus on the other 40%. So that was another just mind-boggling experience for me. It's like, how can you possibly take that view? So started to realize that this is a really underserved and just gigantic opportunity that's being overlooked by the market. And so started to focus on the refrigeration vertical as an energy opportunity, and started a company called Axiom Exergy back in 2015, I think it was. And that company was freezing and melting tanks of salt water to store cooling for later use. So the whole idea was, hey, let's beat batteries at their own game using a technology that costs 1/5 as much as a lithium-ion battery at that time. And basically, if you think about, how is this grocery store consuming most of its energy? 60% goes to refrigeration. So rather than storing a bunch of electricity in a lithium-ion battery, why don't we just store cooling in a big tank of ice? Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. We, commercialized the technology, we deployed it, we sold it to Amazon, Whole Foods, Walmart, and we were scaling up, but ultimately it was becoming really clear this was not going to be a venture kind of velocity business, in the sense that we weren't going to be able to deliver those 10x or 100x returns that venture folks wanted. It was going to be more of like a slow burn type business, because it turns out that deploying a couple of shipping containers behind a grocery store is a massive project management effort that takes 9 months of permitting, and an extra $500,000 of soft cost before we even touch anything.
Yeah.
So that kind of, it took our economics from 5x better to batteries, to like 2x better compared to batteries. And even then the price of lithium was, going down at an astounding rate. And so we realized, hey, we're going to do the best we can here and make the most of this. And then we went to fundraise. We launched our Series B fundraise on March 1st of 2020. If you guys remember that time period, it was not the best time period to fundraise. The entire market shut down. Everyone went home for, 2-week social distancing. And, here we are a couple of years later. Ultimately, ended up closing that company, sold the assets. And so that was a disappointing outcome, but my overall conviction in the opportunity was redoubled. And so decided to start this company, Axiom Cloud, back in 2020, with the whole idea of zero hardware. And instead, we're going to focus on data, and we're going to use AI to process that data to do really massively useful things that would be possible if you had an army of analysts that you could hire and look at every data stream all the time, with humans, but no company on the planet can pay for that army of humans. And so let's use AI to do these things instead. And really where we landed was, let's focus on doing maintenance predictively, making the systems more energy efficient, and then really critically detecting refrigerant leaks early, using AI. So here we are 5 years later. We've grown like gangbusters. We're serving 12 big enterprise accounts today. I'm really excited about kind of where we are and especially where we're going in 2026 and beyond.
It's awesome. It's so cool. I mean, like, the whole concept is cool to me, that this information has existed this entire time and nobody's doing anything with it. And you're going, hey, we really need to do something with this, and we can make an effect change.
It's kind of astounding. Like, before we walk into a building, they already have between 200 and 1,500 live data streams. They already have these 1 to 3 smart summer controllers, and they already have an internet connection. But the status quo is that no human ever looks at that data, until maybe after the fact as a postmortem. And then it never leaves the building in many cases. And in some cases, it even gets deleted or overwritten in 72 hours because that E2 doesn't have enough onboard memory, for example. So you have this gold mine of data just ending up in the trash can.
Yeah.
But you can't affect that 68% energy rate.
Yeah, it's untouchable. Don't bother. Let's focus on the other side. It's interesting. One of the other points that you made, and I think this resonates with us as well on some of the things we're doing at Hero, is you talked about making, when the sustainable choice is also the economic choice, right? And so we say the same thing. Like, people are out there going, well, I'm not gonna worry about compliance, or I don't want to. It's a burden. It just feels like a weightiness, and so they're just ignoring it as if that makes it go away. But anyway, they're ignoring it. And the reality is, if when you tighten up systems, when they become more leak free, right? Because you're never perfectly leak free, but when they're better, the value that you're saving in the loss of refrigerant and energy consumption and on and on and on more than pays for the work that it takes to get there at the front end. And so we're constantly going, look, I mean, just knowing that you have these leaking systems and paying attention to it actually drives an economic benefit to you as an organization. And when people come around to that actually is a better motivator anyway than, well, it's better for the planet, it's better for, compliance, and there's less risk of a violation or whatever. It's like those things are the hard sell. The easy one is, oh, my pocketbook feels better.
Yeah. We often joke that if it wasn't for the regulations, people would be jumping all over this
They'd
stuff.
be more compliant because
well, we can make more money. Yeah. You're going to be more, more energy efficient. You're going to buy less refrigerant. You're going to have less emergency call outs. You're going to have, right. You're going to have data so you can make adjustments, and they'd be like, oh yeah. And to some degree, I think that regulatory component gets in the way of their rational, logical thought processes.
I see your point. Yeah. I think, what we've seen in the space is like, basically there is this cohort of folks who are overseeing, the largest grocery chains, overseeing the largest cold storage companies. And a lot of times there's a lot of reasons for this, but these people don't like change. Mm-hmm. And, unless something is so unbelievably painful that they can't tolerate it for one more single second, are they going to even consider doing something different? Mm-hmm. Even if it's just, smack you in the face obvious that this saves money, or that, this is better than what's being done today, or that this is going to make them a hero in the organization. Even it's more of the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mindset. For a lot of these folks, it's, hey, I'm going to retire in the next couple of years. Let's just keep things as is.
I was going to say, when they pull out the calculator and start doing their retirement date, you're waiting for the next person.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's like, okay, what was that date
before I leave?
To reach back out then. So yeah, that's one trend we've noticed. Another is that, sustainability doesn't move the needle at all for these folks. We learned that many years ago. I learned that many years ago in my career. It's, and then the folks who it does move the needle for don't have budget, unfortunately. So the chief sustainability officers, et cetera, they can be really great influencers. They can be great folks who introduce you to the decision makers and the budget holders, but they don't necessarily have the ability to get things done by themselves unless they're aligning with other parties. And then the third really interesting trend that we've noticed is that compliance opens a lot of doors for new conversations, but we've never closed a deal based on compliance alone because of exactly what you guys were saying. It's like, okay, you've scared us into having a conversation by talking about, how bad it'll be if you're out of compliance and how bad it is for your shareholders. And from a fiduciary standpoint, you just can't ignore this. Like, that is not an okay strategy. Like, you're going to be in huge trouble, basically, you individually even, and your organization and your shareholders. But now that we're on the phone, like, okay, I think I got to do something here. You've convinced me, but like, why would I work with Axiom versus someone else? And that's where it comes back to the business case. Mm-hmm. So, some folks are saying, okay, I want to pay for this just with avoided gas refills. Other folks are saying, all right, I can also consider technician time that would be needed for overnight replacements, emergency replacements, 2 or 3, 4 site visits rather than just one. Mm-hmm. And then other folks are saying, all right, I'm willing to think about avoided, lost sales because, rather than having this whole store go down for 6 hours or a day, I can avoid that. And so it really depends on which stakeholder we're talking to, kind of what they're willing to include in the business case, mm-hmm. how large they're willing to draw that boundary. If that makes sense.
It does. Absolutely.
Is that similar to what you guys encountered?
Yeah, I mean, it is the reality that every decision maker has their own motive and their own, perspective, right? And so what they consider to be valuable or important. And I think that your point on getting in the door is true too, right? Yep, we can get in the door and have that conversation, but you don't close deals on that. It's got to be an economic motivator, and even then, it's which one or which portion matters to them at the moment. So,
and it's got to go through the process.
It does. Yeah. The whole industry is. I mean, we talk about this too. If food retail, for example, were more compliant, the regulations wouldn't be as aggressive and egregious that are continuing to come out. It's because the regulators, the people who can stroke the pen, they're looking at it going, they're not doing this. Let's get more specific. Let's get more detailed. Let's make it more, challenging so that we can really drive home and get at this issue. And the reality is, if the leak rate weren't 25% still after 30 years, there would be a lot less motive on the regulatory side for writing more comprehensive regulation. We
right.
wouldn't have, the AIM Act would, may not have existed. CARB wouldn't be as pressure pointed as it is, because they would say, well, that's not an area of concern. Let's go after this thing over here where they're not listening, right? This other industry. But unfortunately, food retail hasn't been listening. The HVAC refrigeration industry as a whole, frankly.
Yeah, FMI, I think that was pretty shocking. That was Keeley's statement when I started in 2007 or something, right? Yeah. The leak rate was 25%. And today it's 25%, to the best anybody can tell, right? So everyone comes every year going, hey, we want to do this. We want to do, and she's like, why don't you just fix your leaks? Right. Like that would be the step you need to take, is fix the leaks. That's what it's surrounding.
Be a lot less likely to afford.
The other head scratcher is that every retailer feels like they have very low leak rates. You talk to any retailer, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I have like a single digit leak rate last year." Yeah. Like, okay, that I understand, but like, how can that be the case? Like, who is above 25% then? And so I think there's some interesting math that's happening that maybe is not going to persist over time. Because you can only fudge the denominator of your leak rate calculations for so many years before you start getting caught up with.
That's right. That's the trick. Oh, well, that was, we changed something so that that gas doesn't count against our leak rate. That's right. You're changing the denominator. Yeah. That doesn't impact the real number. It's funny. It sounds like the same argument here when somebody says they went to Vegas and they win. It's like everybody you talk to and they go, oh man, I won. Yeah, that's obviously true, because their buildings are getting smaller and they're hardly maintained.
Yeah, right.
That's so true. Yeah, that's a really good comparison. Everyone wins when they go to Vegas. You're right.
Yeah, or we break even. We're there. We're right there. Like no one's losing.
Right there. Yeah. Lost $3,000, but I'm not going to tell you that. I mean, that's the same thing with leak rates. No one's going to admit it either, right? Because I'm not going to admit that we're at 25% because I'm illegal at 25.
Right. We're 2.5. Yeah. 2.5. Just throw a decimal in there. Be fine.
Yeah. I mean, so we're just focused on like, look, now you have the opportunity to be a hero and protect your shareholders, protect your fiduciaries from, honestly, like ending up in jail in some cases. Mm-hmm. And also, by the way, there's a great business case. This thing pays for itself in like the first week and every week thereafter.
Imagine if you're the person, right, that implemented like a system like Axiom Cloud or FM Hero, right? And all of a sudden you could show the receipts for all the improvement. You could go in and go, wow, we did this, and look, that 68% utility, that's touchable. We dropped that way down, right? Our purchases on refrigerant went way down. Our lost products, we don't have that, right? It just takes somebody doing it and exercising on a logical basis, going, oh, that makes sense. And because that business case makes sense, we should act on it and then prove that we were right, and everybody and the others that didn't want to do anything because they're deep in their career or whatever is getting in their way of that vision. And then they get to go in and who wants to be the change agents, right? They go in and show like, no, this is clear, rational thought. And it makes a lot of sense once you actually look at it. Yeah.
But like you said, it's risky. It's more risky than doing nothing.
Especially end of career. I mean, you mentioned that too. A lot of the folks in these roles are, those are high level roles. They're big decisions. They're expensive decisions. You don't get to that spot because you just got out of school. You woke up one day and they put you in that role, right? You've been there a while. You've earned the stripes to get there. Well, often you are closer to retirement at that point. And you don't want to rock the boat, and you're not, you're like, I've had a good career. I don't want to go out on a failure. The risk here personally is high, and that, and we don't see it as high, but it is for them, right? Any change is significant change is a risk, to making the wrong choice, picking a wrong product, whatever it might be. But change is inevitable. It's coming.
Do you get pushback on, well, we've tried other things and they promised this and they promised that, but that didn't turn out to be true, and so you're also fighting those hurdles from previous poor performers to some degree?
Definitely. Yeah. I think there's kind of like a graveyard of companies who have come before Axiom specifically, because, we can be compared to companies who have like actionable analytics. I think that's the key word. That is a dirty word for our customers. When we talk about actionable analytics, or when our customers bring it up, we immediately distance ourselves from it because that's not the core product. And there's been so many companies in this graveyard that came before us who sell actionable analytics, which basically just means like, hey, I'm going to sell you a to-do list of different things that you need to then go and do. Inevitably they're not done. And so you end up in a situation where, you're paying a vendor for data and for actionable insights, and then it doesn't actually translate to business value.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're like, why am I even paying this vendor to send me a bunch of stuff that I know I probably need to do, but I'm never going to do it? Might as well just turn that off and reduce the noise, and then reduce my guilt that I'm not doing those things. So I mean, we definitely run into that dynamic before, but the way that we combat that is, there's basically like, it all comes down to what is the one thing that I need to do right in this moment. Mm-hmm. So, across with some of our customers, they're in hundreds and hundreds of stores with Axiom now. And the amount of data coming in is immense. But then from that, it's like, okay, here's the 50 or 100 things that I should be focusing on. But even that's too much for one human to really process and figure out. So what's the one thing to do?
Yep.
And so, but from all that, from those, let's say there's 100 things that need to get done this month. What are the 10 that I can resolve remotely without ever leaving my desk? Log into a controller, change a set point, adjust an algorithm, fix a programming error. What's the other 20 that I can triage out because, those stores are going to get divested from in the next couple of months, or, the CFO doesn't care about this group of stores, or energy is a lower priority, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And then from there, okay, among my leaks, which stores are, going to hit that 25% threshold rate, or which appliances versus these other leaks, which are small and like, yeah, they're important, but they're not as important as these other ones. And then from there, for all the rest of these issues, let's batch them by store, and then let's prioritize. Like, what's the one technician that I need to dispatch today or right now? Does that need to be an apprentice or a journeyman? Does he need to have 22 or 404A or CO2 in his truck? And then once he gets there, does he go to the machine room, or does he go to the roof, or does he go to the sales floor? And then from there, once he walks to that piece of equipment, what is the root cause of this thing? And what are the steps to confirm that diagnosis and then fix the problem without having to open up YouTube and hope for the best? So that's
YouTube, hope for the best.
That is definitely a strategy in the industry. We're not trying to pick on the industry today. That's not a great idea.
No, totally. But I mean, it is a reality. It's like, look, we have folks who are coming into the space who don't have experience, and then we're throwing challenges at them that they are not
ill-equipped to handle.
Yeah, they're not equipped to handle. And that's because there's no one else available to handle those situations.
And so one of the things, like when I look at things, you always have a list of priorities, right? They're always there. You never completely wipe them out. But what things are urgent, right? What things move from priority to urgent? Oh, I knocked this urgent thing off. That moves this other priority thing up into the urgent level. So is that kind of what you're able to do for them?
Yeah.
Show them yeah, you have all these priorities, like you're saying, you're going through the list, but let's look at the things that are the urgent things that we need to do. You're able to lay that out in front of them, so they can see that without expending a lot of man hours or time doing their own research. Is that how I'm understanding it?
You said it. So now's my moment where I'm going to stand up and brag here. And don't take this the wrong way, but basically,
do it. We're excited.
But you're still sitting. You got to adjust your camera if you're going to stand.
What I'm most proud of at Axiom right now, and for the past year or so, is that our customers don't need to hire another team to like learn and operate Axiom software and services. We're operating more like an additional teammate who's embedded with their existing operations facilities team. And we're there holding their hand, supporting them, collaborating with them every step of the way. So they don't need to hire like 5 more people. They don't need to learn the software. We meet them where they're at. Maybe it's in their work order management system. Maybe it's in their inbox. Maybe it's during weekly meetings. Maybe it's within our customer web portal. Wherever they want is where we meet them. And then that new employee that they just hired, the Axiom AI, happens to have eyes everywhere and can see everything all the time. Which is a really great employee to have. But then, so just where the rubber meets the road is that throughout the entire calendar year 2025, across every single customer account that we serve, across every single site that we serve, we send a very small number of high value, high urgency, high priority issues, anomalies, what we call them, every month. It's not even 1 per store per month. It's less than that. And so throughout all of 2025, across all customers, all sites, our customers resolved 70% of every single thing we sent within 45 days of us sending it. The root cause, not a Band-Aid, the root cause. So that's that metric that I'm most proud of right now. And that's the one thing I want to really brag about today. So thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
So it's like, you think about all the alarms coming in. For one store, you might have anywhere from 0 to 500 alarms coming in for a month, and you're going to resolve maybe 5% if you're lucky, more like 1% or 0%. And then for Axiom, it's like, okay, we didn't even get one anomaly per month at this store, but we resolved 70% of them within 45 days. So it's just like multiple orders of magnitude better from the status quo.
That's incredible.
That is incredible. Imagine if, I'm thinking about the impact that has on a store or on a person, right? Where they're not trying to dig through thousands of alarms and go, what really matters? The added staff members basically like this is the one, go do this one thing. And then what that impact that has on, again, from a climate perspective, like, okay, we're now not just letting gas go into God's bottle, as the Aussies say, right? We're not just letting it go. And as a result, like, you're buying less gas, that system's operating more efficiently, you have less callbacks, you didn't lose product. It goes on and on and on. It's that one actionable item. That's awesome.
Yeah. When you're overseeing a big portfolio of stores, like, good luck if you don't have that.
Yeah.
Then you're trying to juggle hundreds of things and you don't know what to focus on.
Well, and a lot of these, from our experience, a lot of those end up at the contractor level. They're basically just saying, well, the contractor's monitoring it and they got an alarm, so they're going to send somebody out, and you're relying on them to make the decision about what really matters in the back room of the store. Mm-hmm. And if they get that wrong, it's costing you, well, compliance maybe, but it's also costing you just straight up dollars, right? You're just burning dollars by having them go out again and again and again on these call outs and, adding gas or replacing this or whatever it might be, right? And those service calls are expensive, and there's not enough technicians anyway. So now you're actually helping that problem too, because you're not having to have people go out needlessly on small things that aren't really moving the needle.
And as you come across, you're going to need service gases. You don't have it because you let the leaks go. You never addressed it.
Yeah.
And there's no shelf life on refrigerants. You wouldn't need as much of it, but because you didn't address those things, you don't get the opportunity to get it back necessarily. Yeah.
I think there's kind of three fundamental problems with that model. The first is, or there's three big assumptions. The first is that technician actually available? Like, are there enough of these folks?
Mm-hmm.
Second is, do they have the expertise to actually address the root cause of this issue? Or are they going to be fumbling around because they're just not experienced enough? They don't have that training. They don't have that experience. And the third is, do they have that owner's mentality? Like, are they actually going to act in the customer's best interest or not? And in each of those cases, we are just completely whiffing as an industry. Like, we don't have enough of these people. They don't have the right qualifications or the right training or enough experience because, we're throwing them into situations. It's the industry's fault. It's not that technician's fault.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, do they have an owner's mentality? They're on a time and materials not to exceed work order. Of course they don't have an owner's mentality. We have paid them to not have an owner's mentality. That is what we're telling them they cannot do, is have an owner's mentality.
That's right.
So that just means, callbacks all the time, Band-Aids. They slap a Band-Aid on knowing full well they're going to be back next week.
Mm-hmm. Here's a bottle of refrigerant. I don't know if it's the right one, but that's what's here.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Throw it in there.
We talked, this is a little off, certainly off topic, not a little, it's a lot off topic, but, I spent a lot of time in mechanical rooms and refrigeration rooms. And when you go in there and there's 3 different refrigerant types, 4 different refrigerant types in a room, like, right, they've got 4 racks, 6 racks, whatever it might be. Let's just go with a 4 rack scenario, and there's 2 different refrigerant types in the room. And what happens is, the 2 things. One, somebody gets a call at 2 a.m. They go in there and they're moving refrigerant from one rack to the other because that's the only refrigerant available. So they're literally just cross-connecting piping and shoving gas from one system into the other. Like, there's no measurement on how much. There's no accountability on any of that. There's no way to track the leak loss rate at that point. There's no record that this even occurred because it's just time. It's just energy. There's no material because we're not actually charging them for refrigerant. It's just this secret little move that seems very logical, except for you've just totally destroyed the data stream of knowing what's in which system and where the problems really lie. And then the other guy comes in and it's 2 a.m. He grabs a ball. He doesn't know what it is. He's like, I don't care. That leak alarm's got to go. And we got to keep the ice cream cold. And they just stuff whatever it is into that rack and keep the store running. That's all that matters. Just get it running. And then they go home because it's 2 a.m. and I want to go get, this is my last chance to get some sleep because I got a big project tomorrow. And, that's the end of it. So happened all the time. all the time.
And there's 3 different logs, so you don't know what's in there, right? As much as they like to think they have the data. I was talking to someone, I won't say who or what component they have, but the organization was doing a remodel and they had a component built for that location, and they put it in. They're like, "Hey, man, this thing's not working right," but it's because they had them build it for a 404 system because that's what was in their database, but it had been retrofitted to 448, and it still wasn't updated in their system. So they had them build a new thing for the wrong refrigerant type. And they're like, yeah, it didn't work because you told me it was this and it's been retrofitted. So yeah, it doesn't work. And so those types of data that they don't have even at that basic level is not getting back up. Your system is really cool in a lot of ways, but one way is because it's like each one of those little sensors that's already on the equipment is its own little information tech, right? From the field, here's the information. And that's how come we, like all the other platforms for managing the refrigerant or the tracking of the refrigerant, the leak loss, it's all done from not in the field. Right? There's too many hands involved. There's too many gaps in the communication of what happened. There's 3 books for this one rack. The rack has rack A, rack 1, right? There's just different names for the same piece of equipment. And so for like when we go to Hero, that's why we designed that too, is the tech, everything comes from the tech. It is what happened in that mechanical room or that machine room is the information that everybody needs to share. Only that information, not change of hands. And I look at what you guys are doing by using the existing sensors, and they're like these little individual
It's like having a ton of techs in every store all the time.
Yeah, on one piece of equipment. I got electronic techs sending data from the actual piece of equipment, so we know it's right. We're not taking anybody's word for it. Didn't pass through 3 or 4 hands to get the information.
Well,
like
it was
we
in my
use single source of truth.
It was in my spreadsheet, which is not the same as your spreadsheet.
My spreadsheet said it was 404, but the reality is it was 448.
Somebody knew that. Clearly, they obviously did a retrofit.
And so Axiom Cloud and the way they're doing it, and then like you said, the business case, you don't have to upgrade your equipment. All the stuff is already there. We're just going to utilize what you have in place. All these little information techs that are sitting on your piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's a really, I think, astute comparison or thing to mention there is that we don't have that system of record. We don't have that single source of truth. And that is a huge gap in the space, especially in this era now where you can't, relying on a contractor to own your system and kind of make sure it's operating is not a good strategy. It's not a strategy at all. It's because, again, we pay these folks to not have ownership through their time material, not to exceed work orders. And then so having that system of record that you guys provide is so essential when you have this, revolving door of new technicians, new faces coming in to look at, touch the same piece of equipment. And then, the compliance folks who have to do the record keeping, who've never even set foot in that building, who then have to provide data and sign their name and basically an affidavit to the government saying it's all correct to the best of their knowledge.
If I don't know anything, Amrit, if I don't know, to the best of my knowledge it is the best of my knowledge. I just don't know anything. I mean, that's
true. That's true. As long as I keep that knowledge qualifier in there, I don't know if it's in there or not. I hope it is.
Ignorance apparently is bliss. No. One of the things that we catch a fair bit is this time gap problem, right? So a lot of the current tools that folks use are based on invoicing, right? Contractor technician goes out, does some work, goes back to a back office at the contractor turns it into an invoice, has to wait on maybe the part that they installed and getting the actual receipt so that they can do the appropriate legitimate contracted markup that they're only allowed to have. So they're waiting on all this paperwork and documentation to come together in order to send over an invoice that then gets entered into a platform. And that's where they go, oh, we crossed a leak rate threshold, right? We were at 23% and we were at 18, and now, oh my word, we're over. And that process took 40 days or whatever it is before it happened. And now you've been out of compliance already for 10 days because you had 30 days to fix it in the first place. And one of the things that right away when I heard about what you guys are doing that struck me is that's true. It's happening all the time, but you guys are predicting that like now. There's already a leak. You're responding to that problem. And so it's real and you're fixing it before you're at 22, 23, 24% and now in an exceedance where you're in violation and all that. So I really appreciate that about the tech. I think getting that actionable intel out to people really quickly, as opposed to, oh my word, we crossed the threshold. It's all backwards looking as opposed to like real time right now. And we solve that from the technician side by giving them an app that they can hold in their hand and do it right now. And it's feeding directly into the compliance person's space, right? Like they get that alert immediately, but it's still based on that technician. And I love that, taking that technology and pairing it up and saying, now the rack is telling you, or the whatever it is, this sensor, like Les said, all those little live technicians that are on there 24/7 staring at their specific thing are saying, hey, I got a problem over here. And you guys are decoding that and going, yeah, your problem's okay. We're not worried about that. But this one over here, this one we're going to deal with right now. Right. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah. That I think it was Julie Healy over at HEB. You guys know her by any chance?
Yep.
Head of compliance, I think. I'm going to butcher her quote, but she was like, yeah, don't rely on your contractor's son's girlfriend to manage compliance for your multi-billion-dollar corporation.
That's so true.
Invoices at the contract. It's unbelievable. Like how much trust we're putting into these existing systems that we've never audited. We don't, really know if they take it super seriously or not. And then of course we don't pay them to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of hope for the best as an industry. Yeah, it's not a strategy. It doesn't work.
Well, and to further that point, like, yeah, you have that where you're not paying the contractors to fix problems. You're paying them to Band-Aid stuff and move along. Right. But going back before that, when you talk about they put the sustainability officer or the compliance person in place, they're not paying them to do anything either, right? They need to set that up to where they can do it, but the solutions are being shorted there as well, right? Because by what you said, like I talked to them, it's like, yeah, they want to move forward, but they're not
but they don't have
authorized
the budget
to do it. They don't have the budget to do it. They can't make the decision on their own, and they got to go beg, borrow, and steal or plead with somebody to get money to do just the basics. So it's not being paid for there either.
Yeah, it's so true. Our approach, so just going back to like the tiny technicians on the rack, that concept.
Yeah, you can use that for a minute,
Yeah.
Happy to make a contribution.
I can't wait to see that AI generated image. I think, the approach that we've taken is basically we gather technician notes, we gather invoices, work order, follow-ups, et cetera. But ultimately, we're relying on the data coming out of the system to determine, did the person even show up and do anything? Was there a Band-Aid put on, or was the root cause fully resolved? And so it really comes down to that data and the actual operations and how well everything's functioning. And then we make the determination ourselves of what happened rather than trying to rely on technician notes. So it's a different approach. There is still a lag time too. It still takes us a couple days to determine like, okay, let's see this rack get back to steady state and see what happens and see whether it holds up. So there's still a delay, but it's not a 40 or 90 day delay at that point. Just a different approach. And you guys have the most instantaneous approach, which is the technician entering notes right on site, which is gold for these compliance folks. And that's another big hole in our offering today, is that we don't know how many pounds of refrigerant was added when a technician shows up on site. You guys have that information immediately, assuming the technician is diligent.
Yep.
And not transferring from one rack to the other.
Yes.
Look, you can't fix stupid. There's just nothing you can do. Don't do that. Just don't do that.
At the end of the day, though, I think these guys are not necessarily stupid. They're just like, they're like, look, they paid me to get this rack up and running and keep the food cold. And like, that's what I did.
And that's what they want.
I'm saying that it's not necessarily the stupid move of guy getting it to run. It's you set yourself up to fail in those scenarios, right? And so I guess that's what you can't.
You're not budgeting internally for it. You're not authorizing people to pay it. You're not empowering your contractors and their technicians to take care of it, because, like you said, you've limited how they can do things, what they can invoice you for.
And that's not a bad decision either. It's just that when you stack all those things together, it creates this fundamental problem.
When you only look at that side of the problem, you don't look at the expense of your poorly running equipment that's leaking refrigerant. If it was dollars, right? No one would let them go out there and just turn a hose spigot on and let it run in the back of the store, because every second it's on, it's costing you money. But but refrigeration systems run with these leaks, and they're just getting Band-Aided. It's same thing. It's costing you money every time refrigerant is leaking out in a lot of different ways than just turning on the water and letting it run. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And both of them have an environmental impact, right? So, Well, hey, man, we're wrapping up on time here. Parting shots, golden nuggets you want to leave with us?
Well, one thing, so the sustainability piece, which is what gets me out of bed every day, is the couple of really quick facts. One is releasing these refrigerants in the atmosphere globally has a larger impact on climate change than the entire aviation industry. It also has a larger impact in the entire cement industry worldwide. And basically, if you can avoid, leaking 2 pounds of this stuff, that has the equivalent impact of taking one American car off the road for an entire year from a climate change standpoint. And then if we could magically just solve the entire refrigerant leak problem in U.S. grocery stores, that would have the equivalent impact of taking 30 million U.S. cars off the road. Just to give a sense of like how massive this is and what a huge opportunity it is.
Right.
30 million cars. And that's just food retail.
Just food retail. That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's a good nugget.
That is. Yeah. I could buy another car and not feel bad.
Yeah. Buy a lot of cars.
I don't want another car.
All right. Amrit, great to have you. We have a rapport going, and we love what Axiom Cloud is doing, what you're offering out there. So keep that up, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the time and the fun conversation, and I'm so excited about what FM Hero is doing too. And let's figure out how to bring more value to customers together.
That's right.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you for joining us on Chill Under Pressure. I'm Les.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Amrit.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.